there's this blind guy. Let's call him Dino. Now, Dino's a bit of an adventurer. Every year, he likes to set himself a set of new challenges. However, this year, let's call it 2014, Dino isn't sure what challenges to set himself. So, he phones up his very good friend. Let's call him Carl. Carl suggests that Dino has another go at that sport that Carl absolutely loves, and Dino can't do. Let's call that sport stand-up paddleboarding. Every time Carl takes Dino stand-up paddleboarding, Carl comes back dry and buzzing. Dino comes back wet and dejected. Not only does Carl suggest that Dino have yet another go at stand-up paddleboarding, but that maybe the pair of them could get together and spend several days paddling from one side of Scotland to the other. Dino's not very clever. And he says, okay. Now, being registered blind doesn't always mean that you can't see anything at all. And I'm very glad to say that I do actually have some sight. And to give you an idea of what I can see, I've brought along a simulated image to show you. So, it's not 20/20 vision, but at least it's something. Well, it is something, so long as the light is right, and I stay completely still. However, as soon as the light changes, or I start to move around, then I may as well have my eyes closed. So, what did I decide to do when I was told the best I can get out of my eyesight is when I'm completely still? Extreme sports, of course. Imagine abseiling down the side of a 600-foot waterfall. The waterfall's in full flood. The wind is blowing against the rocks. The water's crashing over your head. Or you're piloting a powerboat. Your hands on the throttle. Full power. 45, 50 miles an hour. Bouncing over some big, big waves. Some of these waves are so big, they're flipping you 6 foot into the air. You're almost somersaulting back down onto yourself. Or you're out on your mountain bike. You're doing nicely out in the hills. To the left of you, you've got a nice steep hill comes down and meets the path. The path is a full 6, maybe 8 inches wide. And to the right of it, you've got a sheer drop of 100 foot. Now imagine doing any of those with your eyes closed. I've done all of those and many, many more, pretty much with my eyes closed. And I can tell you, the adrenaline rush is amazing. So 2 weeks later, I got myself up to Loch Tay for a training session. When I got there, the wind was blowing around 6 knots. Now this doesn't sound particularly strong, but it was actually whipping up waves of up to around 4 foot high. And at this point, I'd never supped on anything bigger than 1 foot, so it was pretty daunting. I set myself a goal of paddling into the wind and into the waves for 2 hours before I would then turn around and attempt to ride back on the biggest waves I'd ever supped. In actual fact, paddling into the wind and the waves wasn't that bad. It was more just down to brute force and determination. And I also had the added bonus of occasionally being able to see a wave a split second before it crashed into the front of my board. However, on the way back, these waves were now sneaking up from behind, and they were constantly throwing me into the water. By the time I got back to dry land at Kenmore, I'd been in for a swim at least a dozen times. Whilst packing my kit away, I got chatting to a couple of kayakers. They'd noticed that I had sight issues, and they asked me, how had you kept such a straight line up and down the loch? And I told them I had a master plan for this. My master plan was that I would follow the south shore, and I would make sure at all times I was somewhere between 5 and a maximum of 15 metres away from the shore. That way, it'd be relatively straight, just following the shore, no problem. There was a bit of silence from them for a second or two, before they reworded the question. No, that's not what we wanted to ask. What we wanted to know was, how had you managed to keep such a dead straight line up and down the middle of Loch Tay? It was now my turn to go quiet. They assured me that the majority of my trip I was at least 100 metres off that shore.